Hey, good morning. Yes, it is. It's Thursday, 25th. I think it's the 25th. Old age. Yeah, it's the 25th. So I thought today we would talk about, service guys, and the idea of, is there money doing at-home service versus bringing it back to the shop, and the pros and cons to it. Okay, so stick around. So welcome back. My name is Eric, if you didn't know it. And today, I thought we'd go into, is at-home service really worth it? I want to first start off with, Richard asked a question about the tools that are behind me. And these toolboxes, they ended up, it was with a guy that wanted to sell all of his tools, and I bought all of his tools. And a lot of them were Craftsman, but most of them were like Tractor Supply, Harbor Freight, and Walmart. And really didn't need them, but I figured, heck, I'm lazy. If I have tools every place I'm at, whether it be the shop, the garage, or in the house. But we're not stopping there, right? Both of my trucks are fully equipped with sockets, pry bars. They don't have the amount of tools that we have at the shop, per se. Like a lot of the specialty tools that Claude has out in his part that you might use once or twice, but I try to equip the truck with as much stuff as I could in the toolboxes. And then we have the big socket sets, completes, tucked underneath the back seat. And my dually is a half door, so I can slide it right underneath that in the back, underneath the seat. And then my FX4 is a crew, and that's got a lot of space underneath the seat so that we utilize that. But the question was, is it a viable option to do at-home service? And the answer is yes, depending upon your location and how you've got it set up. Now, I can remember growing up that we all knew what day dump day was, right? And we would take our garbage and take it up to the dump. And then the bulldozer that was up there, he just simply pushed it off, right? And if somebody would have mentioned about a garbage service that comes around and picks up your garbage and then charges you for it, most people would have just scratched their head and said, I don't need that. But now, life is so busy that, and the dump days, are more limited as to when you can get in. And most times it's during the day when you're at work, right? And in our area, we have, I think it's 2 or 3 different companies that come by the house and the shop. We have our own dump, so on the farm, so we don't utilize it, but like I say, the thought back then was that was one of the craziest ideas I ever heard. These guys are making decent money, but the key is the distance between each stop is where they make their money. If they're going quite a ways out of their way to pick up somebody's garbage, they're losing money. So all they can hope is that they can pick up the ones that are in between those stops to help cover it. Like I know there's one guy that's up in Champlain, and his route is like 110 miles long, round trip. So you 55 that way and 55 back a different way, right? To, I think, service around 300 and some customers. But when he was first starting, it was hard because trying to get people to sign on to an unknown. Are you going to take care of my garbage? How clean are you going to have it? Etc., etc. But he started part-time. And he continued working for this contractor, okay? But he had it so that his day off was the day that the dump was open, okay? Or the day before the dump. So that he could, because most times you get 2 days off, right? Saturday and Sunday. With contractors, you can take days off during the week and then work through the weekend. And he would do that depending on what the dump day was. So he would spend the day before dump day picking up the bulk of his customers and having his truck loaded for the following morning to run over and get rid of that load and then go finish the other that day. So it was 2 days he was spending most of the time building his business, his route, okay? But it works for him because he knows every week people are going to get charged for having their garbage picked up. And the way he does it is that he started off so much a bag when he first started. And as he got more into it, he stepped out and he bought the garbage cans with his name on it. And he would let his customers use his garbage cans that could handle 2 or 3 bags of garbage. And he had a set fee for, if you used one or both cans. If you wanted 2 cans, then it was that amount. If you only needed 1 can that would handle up to 3 bags, then it was that way. And he didn't do a lot with recyclables because he just didn't have the space on the truck, all right? So he made that clear in the beginning that recyclables you're going to have to take back, yourself. Wash out your tin cans and your plastics and all the other stuff. But the way he had it set up, he was simply taking garbage. So your tin cans, your plastic jugs and all that stuff could be in that can for so much a week. And once a week, he would come around and he would pick up the can, dump it, and then put it back on the edge of the curb so that when you got home from work, all you had to do was take it back out where it was. And for some customers, some of the elderly customers, he would actually go get the cans. He would back into their driveway, and then he would get the can, empty it, and then he would put it back where they wanted it. Some guys had it, some of the older families had it right in their garage, especially if you got coons around. But what I'm getting at is he built that business one customer at a time. And he was doing it on his 2 days off every week. So he was working technically 7 days a week so he could keep his day job working for a contractor to build this business up. Now, it took him about 1.5 years to the point of where he decided that he was ready to do it full time. And before he decided that, he had hired this other guy to help him out because he wanted to expand his routes. So he hired this one guy just to take and do the routes to kind of lighten his load. And he was part-time, 1 or 2 days a week, the dump days, right? But they kept growing, and it started out just the back of his truck with wooden racks, okay? And then he graduated to the back of his truck with wooden racks, and then also a dump trailer itself with high sides and a covering, because you had to cover the garbage or blow out. And then he was very acutely aware of keep it below a CDL license, your trucks. So that you didn't have to have people with CDLs driving them. So he would buy the 1-tons, Ford, Chevy, Dodge, whatever he could find used in good shape, and he went with diesels versus gas. And now he's graduated to an actual, I call it half size of your typical big garbage trucks. He's got one that sits on a 1-ton truck frame, and that's on a Dodge, I think. And it's got the compactor and everything, so he can handle a lot more garbage, because garbage, if you're just throwing it in, it takes up a lot of space. But if you have a compactor that keeps compacting it, you can get more on that truck. But the key again is customers, is having a route with enough customers on it. With us, we do service calls. We try to avoid them, but we do them. And you have to figure how much to charge for number one. And when I figure the charge, it's a $50 service charge to go out to even look at it, okay? And it doesn't stop there. All right? It's so much an hour. And we include the time that it takes to get there and get back. Most people don't. And then I look at who's going. Is it Claude and I? Are we both going? And hourly, what the two of us would be, and it would be $110 an hour. And if somebody wants us to go up to Plattsburgh, which we have, and work on their piece of equipment there versus going up and trailering it back, then they pay the $50 service call, $110 an hour labor, and that's the minute we leave the shop, which is usually around 7:30. And if it takes us 2.5 hours up, he's paying $110 an hour. And while we're up there working on his piece of equipment, he's paying the $110 an hour. And then the time it takes to get back. The last time we went up, he had problems trying to get a loader on the front of his compact tractor, and he's in Arizona. And it ended up costing him around $800 and some dollars, because we spent pretty much the whole day, 2.5 hours up, 2.5 hours back, and I think it was 3 hours working on it up there. So you need to know how to bill and how to bill accordingly. And what are your charges in comparison to the other shops in the area? What I can tell you is customers figure if you come do it at their place, they can stand there and watch you and see exactly how much time you have invested and try to be as cheaply as possible. I've seen that over and over and over. And that's why we did this $50 service call. Guaranteed us $50 just to show up. And then again, time. How long did it take to get there? But what you're talking is it viable to have a actual service truck that you go and you service, lawn and garden equipment at a said truck? But if you're first starting out and you're trying to decide what direction to go, if you were going to go with having an actual physical location, right? You're either going to have to buy and have a mortgage or rent, lease by the year to have that building. You're going to pay lights on it no matter whether there's something you're doing there or not, because a light bill's a light bill. You're probably going to have to cover, your taxes, city taxes, or land and school taxes if you're out in the country. You're going to have insurances, fire insurance, liability insurance if you have a physical location. You're probably going to want liability insurance on your business, even with it being a service truck trailer only. But you don't have a lot of the overhead that you do with a regular business. Now, my other son, he's actually my son's brother-in-law, but we call him, he's one of the kids. But he has his own welding service, okay? And he makes really good money, just simply. He's got a Miller welder in the back of his truck, and it's runs on a 3-cylinder Perkins diesel, or it's a 4-cylinder Perkins diesel. And it can be either or. It can be a generator, it can be a welder, or it can be both, And he goes from job to job to job. And he always says if he can get his truck closed, because he's got like 100-foot leads for his ground and his positive for his stick, or wire feet. But he's got skills, and he's trying to build that business up. Now, to give you an idea of the skills that he has, he worked for almost 2 years with Elon Musk with the SpaceX, of actually welding on the spaceships that they were building. Your typical welder is not going to be able to do that, but he's trained in aluminum, steel, stainless steel, cast. He's got all the equipment on that truck that he needs. Carries his argon with his oxygen and acetylene, But he and my son, I think, are talking this weekend about going to Syracuse and looking at some of the enclosed trailers at this one dealership. And what he wants to do, and this is what I would suggest to somebody that was going to do a service, at-home service, is they're going to look at trailers, pull behind or fifth wheel, enclosed, that he can mount that Miller welder to the front and then have the exhaust go outside, but still have the muffler system inside so it can provide heat and have a work area in there. And it can have all of his oxygen, acetylene, argon strapped to the walls. He can put up stuff on the sides that lock certain pieces of equipment in. He can have a work table in there. There's a lot of options that he can have. And the main reason is that it doesn't tie up his truck. He can leave that trailer at a job site locked up, is the way he was telling me. And seems reasonable. But if I were doing an at-home service, there is a company here locally that does it. That they do specifically John Deere's. And they've got an enclosed trailer, and they've got the lift in there, and they know before they head out that morning, before the guy heads out, of exactly what lawnmower that he's going to do. And so he takes the right filters with him and what have you. He carries enough oil on the rig to handle that job. He sharpens the blades in the back, so he's got a grinder. You got to have some kind of a power source to run your electric equipment, which means now you got to have a generator. You need a work area for your tools, right? So if I were going to go that route, I would do it with an enclosed trailer that at the end of the day you can unhook in your yard. And if you don't have any work going on the next 2 or 3 days, it's not tying up your vehicle that you could be using for other stuff, multi-purpose for personal use. But I'm going to start wrapping this up because it's getting 20 minutes long. The thing is when you're doing that type of a business, typically we see our customers once, maybe twice a year, okay? And the big thing that we have going for us is that most people do not own trailers, okay? So if you offer a pickup and drop-off service that's reasonable, then you are problem solving for them, so that all they have to do is have it where you can see it. You go get it, bring it back, and service it, and then take it back for a nominal fee, but you're making your money in the shop. But typically we see our customers, that have just got like lawnmowers and maybe a snowblower, like in the spring of the year to do a service on their lawnmower, or if we got them over to a fall service to do the lawnmower so it's ready for spring. See, there's one. Now, if the unit breaks down in between, we might see him. They'll give us a call and say it's not working right. But the bulk of our customers, we get to see, like I say, once, twice a year, depending on if they do a service in the spring on their riding lawnmowers, and they do a service on their snow blowers, if they got the walk behinds. We also do where we take the mower decks off, put the snow blower on, make sure everything is all ready to roll. And if you're going to use it year-round, we have them do a service in the spring for doing the lawn and garden, or the lawns and gardens and stuff like that. And then in the fall, we typically will do another service on it if it's going to be utilized all winter. So you're getting 2 services a year out of those folks. You have to figure out, it's location is depending upon your location. If you're in the city, probably most of your work is going to be push mowers, trimmers, walk behind trimmers, and an occasional chainsaw, right? The farther you get out from the city to the suburbs and towards the country, the yards start getting bigger. And now you've got the riding lawnmowers, the rototillers, and, et cetera, et cetera. So your hope is that that person has more than one piece of equipment that needs a service on it or needs to be repaired. But you have to look at it as a one-shot pony, right? If they've got a riding lawnmower, you're going to service it once a year. And the service, you have to figure it into how you're going to budget for the month, or for the week to pay bills. And the closer your customers are together, the better it is for you. So if you go like to this area today, this area tomorrow, and so forth. But again, you'd have to have a large customer base because you're only being hit certain times of the year, right? And you can't get too large because if you got all these spring services, it's just smashing you. You can't do like 500 of them, in the spring. So I would try to split it up so out of the 500, I had the 250 in the spring and the 250 in the fall. Split your customers up so that give them a little better deal if they have it done in the fall to entice them over. And then for regular breakdowns, you have to have a service call so that it's worth starting that truck. And I would invest in a enclosed trailer that you can pull, that you can have all your equipment on there, your generator, your lift, your oils, tools, whatever you're going to encounter, okay? And that way, when that truck isn't rolling on a service call, you can also use it without having the trailer behind you. Go out and drum up more business, go door to door, or for personal use. So again, there's so many different variables, but like I say, I can remember when picking up your garbage would have been laughable, and now it's commonplace. If you've got the right equipment and you're a one-man band, yes. But you have to have your customers fairly close, and you have to have a lot of customers. You got to build that customer base up. And you're probably going to have to do it, on the weekends. Or 2 days you have off. You're going to be spending out there trying to hustle up more business, whether it's going door to door in between your regular customers and letting them know, or leaving a flyer, leaving a brochure, business card with your brochure, rates, so that it gives them a chance to think about it. And then they'll ask their neighbors that are already using you, is it worth it or not? And most times, if you're doing it right, you'll gain those other customers. So on that note, you guys have a great Thursday. Today, I think, because we didn't get there yesterday, we were going to go burn brush piles, but Claude had problems with his furnace in his trailer, and thank goodness he had a spare that he was able to pull that one out and put in the new one. But when something goes on at the shop, or heat, anything like that, get her done, and you do it on my time, and I'll go up and help you with it, because it's serious you got to have heat, right? Or everything's going to freeze. But I think today we're talking about trying to get out there on them brush piles. We got jugs of diesel and use more oil together that we can put onto the pile, and light it with a butane torch, and then just sit there with the mini and feed it. So I'll go out with Claude first thing and get everything going where we got a good fire and stuff. And then there's probably no sense in me sitting around. I'll run the camera for just so long. And then I'll probably come back to the shop and leave him there just to tend the fire and keep feeding it. So on that note, hopefully you had a good time with Harbor Freight Tools. I especially like that box for the DeWalt's. And for you guys just starting out, you don't need a lot of tools, guys. For you do-it-yourselfers. The other thing that I didn't mention that I think is important is like a compression tester. You're probably going to want to have that as part of your arsenal. So on that note, enjoy today.